Does it say that the states have specific powers? The states have the power to conduct education. The states have the power to conduct transportation. The states have the power to oversee health care. The way that Article 1, Section 8 gave the national government some 14 specific powers? No. No, it doesn't. What does it say? If it's not a power of the national government, nor denied to the states, then it belongs to the states. Well, in light of what we've just said, what else is troublesome about this definition of reserve powers? Yes?
It doesn't really specify what the states can do.
It doesn't specify what the states can do. And if it's not a power of the national government, let's go back to that elastic clause. Let's go back to that necessary and proper clause that created the implied powers. What did we say has happened to the scope of the national government's power, the implied powers, over the course of 2 centuries? What's happened? They've expanded, and they've expanded, and they've expanded. Notice I got a bigger base on my feet so I can hold myself up. And they've grown. So, but yeah.
No, I was going to say, as the government's, like the national government's power increases, the states increases.
And so by this definition, what would have happened to the reserve powers of the states at the same time? It would have contracted, 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 and shrunk, and disappeared virtually altogether. And I could have cited once upon a time a Supreme Court case that would have said the reserve powers were a constitutional truism, merely reflecting the right of states to exist until. Oh my goodness, there was a Supreme Court case in the mid-1990s. I'm having a middle-aged moment. Again, a lifetime of fatty and alcohol is destroyed in one's great mind. But maybe your youthful minds and memories can help me out. Can you think of a court case somewhere in the mid-1990s? Dealt with, say, federal-state powers and relationships? No, it wasn't homosexuality case. It was U.S. versus Lopez. 1995. What did the court say in U.S. v. Lopez in 1995 again? I didn't really forget the name of the case. What did the court say in U.S. versus Lopez? The Supreme Court said that the Gun-Free School Zones Act was unconstitutional. Why? Because it bore no substantial relationship to the Commerce Clause. Now let's apply the wording and logic of the 10th Amendment. If it's not a power of the federal government to regulate guns around school buildings, which level of government does have that power? It's the power of the state governments. If the federal government doesn't have the power to let women sue their attackers in a federal court for civil wrongs, which level of government then does have that power under the logic of the 10th Amendment? It's a power of the state governments. See, what we've seen as a result of U.S. v. Lopez, of the Morrison decision and some others, is that these reserve powers have have had some vitality, some life breathed back into them. And that's why when I think of the 10th Amendment, now when I think of these reserve powers, I think of the movie E.T. Well, I do. But you've all seen E.T., right? Everyone seen E.T.? You've not seen E.T. What kind of deprived home did you grow up in? Are you Amish? Are you just... Okay, well, nothing against the Amish, but is your homework assignment for the break. Your homework assignment. I'm not joking. I'd say go get a DVD, and I'm showing my age too. Go out and get a lithograph. To go out and download whatever you people do these days and watch E.T. as part of your 10th Amendment education. But everyone else in here remembers the movie E.T., right? About the little boy Elliot. I want you two to get to it. Aside from the two weirdos. about the little boy Elliot who finds an alien in the backyard, and the alien's so ugly he's cute, and they go through all these adventures, and turns out that E.T.'s a cross-dresser, he finds him, you know, wearing his mother's clothes, and all this weird alien sex practice. So, what happens at the end of the movie? Be careful of the movie you're watching, make sure it's the real E.T. Well, Mommy told me to watch this for homework. And what happens at the end of the movie? You know, E.T. finally escapes the house and he gets lost in the woods. And where do they find the alien? They find him face down, drowned in the river under the bridge. And they take him home, they lie him out on the slab, where now the evil federal agents are there. And he's dead. They have the sheet over him. Brings a tear to your eye. But then what happens? All of a sudden, there's a glimmer in his heart. E.T. comes back to life. And not only does he jump off of the slab, but he recovers to the extent that he's able to ride a bicycle through the air. Also giving us a clue as to how much drugs Hollywood screenwriters use. That's kind of, sort of, what happened to the reserve powers. Not that they're strong enough to fly a bicycle through the air. But we thought that as far back as the 1930s, that the Supreme Court had drowned them in the river under the bridge. They were laid out dead on that slab for the longest time under a sheet. When then, as a result of U.S. versus Lopez and these other cases, a glimmer has been restored to their heart light. Now, again, these cases are relatively narrow in scope. By far, the implied powers are still much superior to the reserve powers in constitutional terms, but some life has been breathed back into them over the course of the last 13 years. But at the same time, I don't want you to go home and tell your parents, what did you learn in class last week? Well, my professor told me that the national government was so much more powerful and important than state and local governments. That's not what I'm arguing at all. I'm arguing this in terms of constitutional theory. Because, really, I would argue instead that the actions of state and local governments together affect us much more on a direct basis, on a personal basis, than all of the laws and actions of the national government put together. Because, after all, where do you go to school? Where do you go to college? Do you go to the National Academy of Liberal Arts and Sciences? No. You go to Truman State University. What I am saying is that a better way in constitutional terms to think of the powers of state and local government as a much broader grant of power to them is not under this notion of the reserve powers, but to think of them instead as the police powers. And the police powers are the powers of state and local governments. These are the powers of state and local governments to regulate matters affecting the health, the safety, and the moral well-being. Now, I don't care if you think government doesn't regulate morality, it does so all the time. To regulate matters relating to the health, to the safety, and to the moral well-being of its citizens. And again, these police powers have an enormous impact on our daily lives. Well, here we are. You're all wishing, he would just let us the hell out of here early, because no doubt many of you are leaving for the break after this class. Looks like some of your colleagues decided to leave a little bit. Whether it's this afternoon, whether it's tomorrow, Truman students always leave. I've grown to believe over the years that if the world were going to hell, Truman students would leave a day early. Why are you saying, we're going to hell, man. It's a good class to go to hell. Don't want to miss a day of hell. But here you are anxious. Anxious for spring break to start. So you load your stuff into your car. You drive down that Freedom Highway, highway number 63. And you see Kirksville getting smaller and smaller in your rearview mirror. It feels good to you. And you put the pedal to the metal. You start going 60, 70, 80 miles an hour, buzzing down the road, just flying by La Plata. when all of a sudden you see the red and blue lights in your rearview mirror and you go, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap. Cop pulls you over, gets out of the car. You were going kind of fast, son. I'm going to have to give you a ticket. I'm with the National Speed Limit Enforcement Administration. Is that who's going to pull you over? Is the FBI going to pull you over? No. Who's going to pull you over instead? A state trooper, or maybe even, I was going to say the gendarme will play. Sometimes they'll play it as a cop, sometimes they don't. It depends on the city budget situation. I don't think they have a cop right now, but they used to have a cop. And I think one of the main sources of city revenue is him pulling over people on Highway 63. Now, this is going to be something enforced by, the national government in terms of what they do. Again, you don't attend the National Academy of Liberal Arts and Sciences, you attend Truman State University. And as you come to school in the morning, those of you off campus, and you circle and circle trying to find a place to park, and you decide to park in a red spot, and damn you all in. Who's going to give you the ticket? Is it going to be the National Parking Enforcement Administration? No, it's going to be one of the local Barneys here on campus. It's going to be an officer at Truman State University. Health inspections, building inspections, traffic enforcement, code regulations. Those cops are always hassling us kids, man. All of this falls under this broad responsibility of the police powers of state governments, and they affect us intimately on a daily basis. And so the Constitution grants many, many powers to the national government. It also at least recognizes many powers as belonging to state and local governments.